Alright, so we are standing in the middle of the food forest, and if you can see, there are tons of weeds everywhere and it is completely overgrown. The method that we started building our food forest, this idea of planting everything and trying to suppress out all of the other things that we didn't want, it has not been going great so far. So in this video, I'm going to share with you guys our take 2 strategy, how we are planning on moving forward to combat this problem if you're looking to start a food forest, and just documenting our journey to see what works and what doesn't work. So let's jump right into it. Alright, so all of this growth is pretty much what we don't want. You can see our little orange tree back here, which has been growing a very interesting way. It has like one giant branch coming out of the top, and then that little bush down there. So of course we don't want any of these things, right? These weed looking things, I'm not really sure what they are. They're about 4 or 5 feet tall right now. Some of them, like this one here, is definitely taller than me. This is about 8 feet tall right now. Alright, so definitely stuff we don't want in here. Now, what originally we planned on doing was just planting out our fruit trees. Alright, we have a whole bunch of fruit trees, and then planting around them so that things would not grow. You can see a whole bunch of grass and ferns and a whole bunch of stuff we didn't want, especially back in this area. The grass has completely taken over, and we were planning on brush cutting a lot more often, but of course that takes a lot of effort and work, and these things have grown like 8 or 9 feet tall. I have no idea what this is, but this has grown 8 or 9 feet tall in just a few months. Alright, so clearly we need to get rid of some of this stuff, and we're trying out a whole different approach to just building our food forest. Alright, so let me tell you what it is we're planning on doing and seeing if it works. Alright, so we have 2 main problems in this space. Number 1 is the amount of weed and brush and just weeds, unwanted plants, some things not necessarily weeds, but stuff we don't want to grow, non-food producing things, non-beneficial things for our food forest purpose. So we want to get rid of all of this brush. The problem is with that, it grows ridiculously fast. Alright, I wish our fruit trees would grow that fast, but they don't. So all of the weeds in here, we brush cut every couple months, and it looks just wild after that, and I would like to not have to do that, but in the meantime we don't have anything else here. So that is problem number 1. Number 2, which is a massive problem, is that I thought by putting some of these cages around our trees, our food trees, that would solve the deer problem. All right, prevent the deer from eating our plants, and that was the furthest thing that is from the truth. All right, so the deer have been coming in here and just eating everything that we even started getting. We got some mulberries, we got some peaches, we started getting some persimmons, lemons, and the deer have just come in here and found a way to destroy everything. And so we're not getting any fruit at this point. So number 2 is we're going to put a fence around the entire area. We're gonna use a lot of these trees as fence posts, and just block off the entire area and put like a 7 or 8 foot fence with just some mesh netting that should be fine for the deer, and just get this area barricaded off. Now of course that means that these little barricade things here, all of these little tree barriers that we have put in place can come out, because we're gonna start using these trees, right, these massive pine trees, and go straight down the property, straight across, next to the neighbor's yard over there. That's their driveway. And so we're gonna just create this massive fence and use the trees to screw in this like mesh fencing, and then anywhere we don't have a tree post, then we'll come in here with big T-posts essentially and just put them in and use those as posts as well. Step 1 of all of this is brush cutting. Say hi, Alan. We have rented a brush cutter, right? This is a brush hog just from the garden center, and we are going to brush cut everything first so that we can do our step 2, which essentially is to come in here and solarize everything. All right, we're gonna do this in layers because this is a pretty sizable area to solarize. All right, it's about 7,000 square feet, give or take. All right, and we want all of this brush out of the way, like all of this grass, this brush. Essentially, this wasn't here before. We had a lot of bigger trees, and when we knocked down those trees to let in this beautiful light that we're getting. We got tons more of these weeds or brush or whatever it is that we didn't want in here. All right, all of these vines, which you see right here, I'm trying to get close without getting stung. There are actually some really pretty flowers and some bumblebees on them, so they're amazing for the food forest, but we want to actually be able to grow food as well, and we don't want these weeds. We want to plant out things that I know what it is and that we can eat them and that sort of thing. Alright, so Alan turned on the brush cutter, so if it's a little loud, that's why. But essentially, solarization, if you're not familiar with it, is putting down a very thick type of greenhouse polyurethane type of tarp and just letting the sun get rid of all of the weeds underneath. Alright, so that will be our step 2, alright, out of this process. We're going to brush cut, we're going to put down some tarp, we're going to fence in the entire area. We're going to try to do that depending on when we get the fencing in. There's some butterflies actually flying around me, so that's kind of cool. But we're going to do that as step 2 and 3, right? The fencing and solarizing. Now we only have, I think it's like 50 by 100 square feet of tarp. So we're going to do it in about 500 square feet at a time, which means that we're not going to have all of this done, and we're probably going to have to rent the brush cutter again and brush cut the rest of the sections, but we're going to see how the solarizing goes. Now, I tried to do some research on finding like information about solarization in a food forest, and I have not been able to find anything about that. I am going to go with solarizing, which is usually something you do to kill off grass or weeds like in a garden. I'm going to go with solarizing because if I put down cardboard, as I think you normally do, right, when you're trying to create like layers of a food forest, if you put down cardboard and then put down compost and then mulch, first of all, it's very expensive, all right? And this is a rather large area to buy that all in bulk, so I'm gonna try to prevent doing that. I did try to find resources for like free mulch or compost or anything, but in this area, it's just not seeming to work out, and the prices are very high already. So we're gonna scratch that. We're gonna do this in sections, all right? So that is our number 1 takeaway. We're working in smaller sections because we don't have a lot of time after work and on the weekends and that sort of thing with everything else going on. So that is the plan so far. We're going to brush cut like we're doing today, put down some solarization in sections, and we are going to fence off the entire area so that the deer are no longer destroying things and allowing everything to grow. After the solarization, which will be a few months from now, after that, we are going to hopefully rip up the tarp and find a clean slate, all right, so we don't have to continue ripping stuff up. And then I'm going to put down cardboard and mulch, or cardboard, compost, and then mulch. All right, so this video is essentially telling you guys what our take 2 plan is, because take 1 didn't seem to work very well. Everything is just being completely overrun. And then once we have that solarization in place and we're able to rip it up in a couple of months, then I'll do a recap video on did that work and going from there and next steps and everything. So for right now, that is our plan. If you guys have questions or comments, anything that, feedback of any sort, I would love to hear about it in the description below. So far our trees are doing well. I'll take you around and show you guys a couple of our trees. They are doing really well. They are also being kind of smothered out by a lot of these weeds. So the first of which is this fig tree. It is getting kind of large, all right? So this is now about 4.5 feet tall or so, and it is getting a lot of new growth. However, this vine type thing and a few of the other like grass and palmettos and stuff are really just taking over, all right? And I have come in here several times and just kind of taken all the stuff off the cage. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with some of these leaves, but that's probably the least of my concern at this point. And then whatever else is growing on it, you can see some bare roots here, bare stem. That is because the deer are just coming in and eating everything. So what I really want to do is, first of all, block off the deer. But second of all, I want to be able to remove these cages that is like allowing these other binding plants to trellis on them. All right, that's really, I think it'll be very helpful. And then we have some over here. You can see this plant down there is actually trying to spread. That little fig tree is trying to grow, but this cage is also preventing it from doing that. And at the same time, you can see all of these like vines and weeds and stuff growing up this orange tree, which also needs to be trimmed, and it has thorns, so I'm trying not to stab myself. But this is like now 10 feet tall, and I think it needs to be pruned back, all right? So we're gonna prune this back, take off this vining stuff off of this tree, get rid of this thing over here, and hopefully that'll give it the best chance. Alright, so this is our peach tree, and it actually did have some peaches on it, and of course the deer came and took those too. But it had originally a cage on it, right? So it has this little one, and then it had another one on top of this one, and the deer kind of came through, and I had to actually unbend this, right? Because this is completely toppled in, and the cage that went on top of it was just completely gone. But you can see where the deer can't access it. All of this new growth for this peach tree, all right, and then wherever the deer were able to get access, and I just kind of stopped putting back this top thing, I kind of gave up. You can see no new growth, and this is kind of just dead at this point, all right, nothing green. So this is really number one priority, but then hopefully, I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work, if I can trim this back and it grows again, or if we have to replace the entire tree. We shall cross that bridge when we get there. But also things like this, all right, this banana, or these banana plants, are doing extremely well, and they're growing a ton from when we first planted them. They are rather large, all right, but I'm not actually able to get in here and compost, or add compost, because I'm actually afraid that there's snakes in here and stuff, which is a good possibility. So we're gonna brush cut and just get everything out of the way so that these things can continue growing. Now this is like, I want to say a good 7 feet at least, all right? And the same thing over here. It was very interesting to see how nature works. When we got rid of all of these trees, this layer of like oak trees and canopies and stuff that was in here, and they probably weren't oak, they were like little trees of some sort. But all of this grass started growing in. None of this was here before, all right? It was completely non-grass at all. And the same thing with like these vines along the floor. Now we really only have a few things that grow in here that produce food, as far as like native things. We have creeping cucumber, which I think is one of these vines down there. I can't tell which one it is. It might be, no, not that one. This one is actually quite interesting. This is actually grape, right? So this is muscadine grape. Now I have not been able to get them to produce fruit yet, but they are growing wild all over the entire property, and my goal one day is to actually get them to produce grapes. And then we have something else actually that is native to Florida. This is actually called beautyberry. We do see lots and lots of berries on it when it comes springtime, and I saw some recently actually. But this is something that we want to keep, but it's not an essential, right? Like if I can manage to keep a few of these little plants, then that's fine with me. However, beautyberry isn't something that like we generally eat. It would be nice to keep it as like a native plant species, and it grows wild. So I will probably end up ripping some of these up and saving them to plant back out. And you can see that there's actually a whole bunch of them over here. So this is a prime example of why we need to come in here and do all the work. This has been a couple of months. This is our mango tree, all right? You can see a whole bunch of new growth, those little leaves, but this is grass, all right? And it's just coming up through this cage here. I'm trying not to get too close because I did see something move, and like the entire grass area moved of some sort, and I'm not sure what that was. But we're gonna come in and brush cut, get everything out, all right? Remove the cage, and then once we have our solarization done in little areas, I'm going to come through and make it all pretty, add some compost, and plant out immediately. You can see the chickens have found a nice little dirt patch to sunbathe in. And then on that same note, all right, because we are going to have to create a whole bunch of compost or buy a whole bunch of compost, we are going to start making an entire compost pile with some of this stuff, right? You can see like this is broken down mulch. This is pine bark mulch, which does a really good job. All right, this has been a while since it's been here, but oops, and I just slid on a whole bunch of nasty stuff. So this is going to come up. I'm going to take a shovel and get it into a compost bin, which we will actually be starting, all right, and then come in here and put down new wood chips and new like some of this stuff, right, this pine mulch from like that, it actually just dropped from the trees. So that will be in here. All of this stuff will be our basis for our new compost pile. All right, so at the same time as we're doing this project, we actually have a larger project going on. And I know I keep referencing this on my channel. I don't think I've actually shown you guys yet. This is our home site. All right, so ooh, there's something on me. Oh, just flew away. So this is our home site. You can see we have it all cleared. There you go. We have some like giant compost piles over there that they're using to grade after they put in I think, foundation pad, something like that. So we have it all with that like plastic thing all the way across here. All right, and this is where our home is gonna go. Now, you can see stuff has definitely been growing through. The natural stuff here grows extraordinarily fast, and it is very wet. It's been pouring nonstop, all right, which is why you see some like little puddles back there, and the area is very wet. Oh, and look, deer tracks. We have some deer tracks coming through this whole area. There we go. And then we are actually having to de-water this area, which is, to my understanding, they take like some sort of like a pump in the ground, take out all of the water into like another area, and then they can continue to compact it, because what's happening is right now they're not able to compact it all the way because it is so flooded. So we will see how that goes, and hopefully soon we'll have a building pad. That is the entrance to our property. That is going to be the driveway, and I'm standing essentially in the middle of the house. So this over here, right, we have stakes marked out with the edge of our house over there, and then we have definitely a good setback from the road on that side, and then another like 200 feet to the neighbor's property. I know it looks kind of close, but it's actually a lot in the back there. So that is where we're at with this project. And then our food forest is that little area from right there all the way to the road, which is about 100 feet or so. All right, so as you can see, all right, we have the brush cutter going over there, and this is what's left over. In case you guys are curious, it's kind of like a lawnmower, except it cuts through a lot of like the bigger branches and stuff also. So all of this, all right, perfect nitrogen, grass clippings, weeds, whatever else for our new compost pile. All right, so all of this will come back here. Maybe not all of it, because it is quite a bit, but we are going to take a whole bunch of this and start our compost pile with all of these clippings as well, and try to also get all of this stuff out of the area so that all of these seeds here on these plants can't continue to grow in this space. Alright guys, so we actually have cleared out all of the space. As you can tell, there's a lot more room now. Looks like the brush cutter kind of got this one, but I can't be too upset. It's a little hard to see where you're going with the brush cutter, especially in a space like this. So we have tons of empty space now. We are going to try, for the most part, to not let it get like this ever again. We would like to start coming in here and maybe putting some compost in, but we are going to start, I think, with this back corner over there where the fig and the orange and pomegranate are. Solarize that space, see how that goes, and then if that works well, extend it to the rest of the area. If it doesn't work well, then we will reassess and maybe just go with the cardboard plan with some mulch on top of it. But we are going to have to come in here and get rid of some of this stuff that is taking over. This is a grapefruit tree. You can barely see it because of all the stuff that is growing in this cage. First, we are going to, like I mentioned, we're going to fence in the entire area using these trees, like the ones all the way on the edge of that driveway. We're going to come in here with some fencing, screw them directly onto the trees where we can, and then hopefully we'll be able to get rid of some of these cages in here and come in here, have access to the trees, and put down a lot more compost and cardboard and solarization, all the stuff that, you know, is going to make it look like an actual food forest. Of course, once we remove these nettings, then we can get rid of all of this 6-7 foot grass that's come in here. What happens is the grass takes up all the nutrients from these trees, and you can see, and as you can see, the vines, these grapevines are even creeping up of this little soursop tree, and it is pulling it down with it. So I'm gonna have to come in here and try to get these vines off of it and not allow that to smother this out. It definitely smells a lot like soursop when I'm on this tree, but it's not doing too well. And you can see Like, it's definitely nutrient devoid. So we are going to get this cleaned up, and hopefully it'll put on some leaves sometime soon, and some brand new growth. Now, as far as all of this grass, this is actually perfect, right? All of this stuff right here, I'm gonna go and take a lot of this and put it in our compost pile, right? So grass clippings, this has not been treated with anything. It is absolutely perfect to go and put into our compost pile on the other side. And then, of course, in the process, anything that we see wrong with the trees, like you can tell this Barbados cherry tree is leaning, we're gonna go back and prop them up. Also, oh my goodness, and to my surprise, there's actually a few cherries on this tree that the deer have not gotten to. So hopefully we'll get a lot more. I know that this tree has been trying to flower actually for a while, and it did have some little buds on it, but every time I see buds, then the deer come in and take them away. So hopefully we'll get a whole bunch of little Barbados cherries. Oh, and there's actually a lot of fruit on this plant, so definitely excited for some cherries this season. And also now we can see our yucca plants. These are yucca or cassava, and they have been hiding along all of that brush that was here before, but now that the area is cleaned out, we have one over there, and they're getting quite tall. Well, not quite tall, maybe a few feet, but they were tiny when we planted them. So definitely excited for that. All right, and so we have our compost, well, our started compost pile. This is really just all of the chicken manure that is inside the chicken coop. I just put some cardboard here, scraps that we had as well. But this is not composted yet. It is like partially composted. You can't tell like that there's chicken manure in it. It looks like compost, but it definitely has a smell, a lot of nitrogen and ammonia in it still, so we're gonna have to let this compost. I am going to be building a compost pile, or we are going to be building a compost pile here, with some wood pallets, with some wood pallets, and then we're going to take this and start that plus the cardboard boxes and some grass clippings and stuff along this edge here. So it's going to be a multi-bin compost pile hopefully, and that way we can start using that in our food forest over there and not have to continue to buy compost. All right, so I am very excited for this project. We started a food forest, I think, over a year ago now, and we've planted out a good number of trees. We have mulberry, we have peach, we have mango, we have banana, we have a pomegranate, lemon, orange, fig. We have a whole bunch of trees, and even some other things, like I've grown potatoes in this area a little bit, experimented with that, but really this needs to go. All these love bugs around me here. It is love bug season again here in Florida. So all of this stuff needs to go. We're gonna try to get this done in a couple of months and then section it off. So this is probably not gonna be a project that's complete for quite a while, but hopefully as we do one section at a time, we can tweak our approach instead of just trying to do it all at once like we did last time. So we'll do a small section. If that doesn't work, tweak it in the next section, continue tweaking, and by the time that we get to the end of our food forest, hopefully we'll have a good space that isn't overrun by brush and weeds and all this other stuff that we don't want. And we'll go ahead and plant out immediately so that can continue growing and it shades out all of the other weeds and stuff. Now, one thing that I will say about this area is that it is extraordinarily fertile, which is a good thing. I don't foresee us having to add tons of compost or fertilizer or anything like that to get things to grow. Of course, you're gonna have to add some sort of like fruit tree specific or nut tree specific nutrients once the plants start actually growing, but this area, as you can see, has no problem growing everything, and even our trees that are here are growing if it wasn't for the fact that the deer have come in and stunted all of the growth and eaten it all. Now, I will definitely continue to update this project as we go along, especially with the solarization, because I am very excited to see how the solarization works for this kind of environment where it's not just grass. I will let you I will continue to give you guys updates if you guys are trying to start a food forest or anything like this in an environment that's not just grass. We shall see, but I'm excited to keep you updated. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.